Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a Bowsinger build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. This is a request that I've been working on for a while now, and patch 8 released the new Bladesinging wizard, and it has a lot of really fun combinations that we can go with. Now the multi-class will consist of the wizard Bladesinger, and we can add in the sword bard as they get the ability to attack twice with their slashing flourish on the range attacks, which is actually really effective. There's also another slight multi-class that we can do. I'll be taking through all of that, and if we're going to be starting, it's probably best to start with the bard and then add the wizard so you can use intelligence for your spell casting from scrolls. But I'll just start off with the wizard here, as it has a pretty good start. Now what we'll be grabbing for spells, Booming Blade obviously being one of the most effective. We also want to have Mage Hand because we can use this to throw water bottles to set up chain lightning and things like that, and it can also throw health potions for your team. And Bone Chill or Ray of Frost are also quite nice because they give a condition to targets, but Firebolt's also nice because it can explode things. But I personally like to take Bone Chill here. And for our special spells that we'll be taking, we're going to want to have some type of armor, so mage armor can be really effective. You can learn that from scrolls, however, so shield is one that we definitely want to have, and Find Familiar is also quite nice. Grease for the crowd control can be pretty effective. We do get Thunderwave from the bard, so we're going to skip out on that, and we'll take, I guess, mage armor, magic missile, and chromatic orb can be decent, so we'll go with that there. Now, since this is multi-attribute dependent, this is something that we do have to keep in mind. So if you don't want to use any of the bard spells, we can go with 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, 16 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 10 charisma. If you're the face of the party, there's a bit of a better spread, but we will have to use an item to counteract the low attacks that we'll have because of our dexterity. So the dexterity gloves will set our dexterity to 18, and this is possibly the best way to go about doing this because this lets us dump our overall dexterity, put those points into charisma, and then also lets us put points into wisdom so we have better wisdom saves. So this is going to be requiring the gloves of dexterity, but you can also use the intelligence circlet too if you'd prefer, as that's another act 1 item, and you're going to have one of the 2 items, so that's why I'm going to be utilizing those for this build. If you're using the intelligence circlet, dump your intelligence, put those points into dexterity. Level 2 is when we get to take the Bladesinger here, which gives us the blade song, which will give us a +2 and eventually +3 to our armor class and saving throws, constitution based ones, so we can hold concentrations a little bit better. And we're going to add in a couple more spells here. Long Striders from the bard. And we're actually going to be learning a lot of spells from scrolls. So we can just add in a few others like Foul Slife and the Fog Cloud there. Bladesinger's weapon's up to you. It doesn't really matter too much because it's just a free weapon. And prepared spells always have Magic Missile on for guaranteed damage and the shield spell. Level 3 gives us access to some very effective spells. And I really like to take the Hold Person. The reason why I like Hold Person is if you use an arrow of many targets on the first target that's held with Hold Person, it's going to critically hit everyone around them, which is extremely effective. And then for our secondary spells, Misty Step is really nice, or Mirror Image, but these are spells that we could also get from the bard, so if you wanted to take those from the bard instead, we can also go with something like the Scorching Ray spell there. Leveling up though, I like to have the Hold Person spell, so we can go with something like that. Darkness is another nice choice, especially if we have items to help see in darkness. And Shadow Blade, it's just a very effective one, although this is going to be focused on ranged weapon attacking, so something to keep in mind, but Shadow Blade is going to be the highest melee damage in the game. Level 4 gives us another cantrip. I like Minor Illusion to group enemies together, and also if you're the face of the party, friends can be quite nice. But we're going to take Firebolt because sometimes you just need things to explode without wasting a spell slot. And for our next level spell, again, Hold Person's great, but you can also get that from the bard. And we also have the Mirror Image there, or the Shadow Blade spell, which you don't have to use Shadow Blade. If you don't like that, just take Hold Person or Greater Invisibility. And then we'll go with, for our feat here, there's a few ones that are really nice. Now, I like the Sharpshooter feat, but early on, you're going to have a hard time with that -5 to attack rolls. We can offset that a little bit, but this allows you to deal 10 extra damage. And if you're using Arrow of Many Targets, it applies 10 damage to every single target, so that's actually quite a bit. You can also go with, if you want to use a hand crossbow, the Crossbow Expert lets you do these at melee range. And then this is really nice too, because you can use the Ballast Armor to double their damage. But we're going to go with the Sharpshooter, as this is a ranged weapon attacker. You can also toggle this off if you're having a hard time hitting your shots, so that's something nice as well. Level 5 gives us another Blade Song charge, but we also get access to some very powerful spells. The Bard does not get counter spells, so that's something we're going to take, and you can't learn that from a scroll, whereas there's scrolls of Fireball, Haste, and Lightning Bolt, all the different ones here, so you can learn some of these other spells from a scroll. It's hard not to want to have a Fireball or Lightning Bolt though too, so we'll take that. But again, Haste is something you can take from a scroll too, so that can be nice. And always have counterspell prepared. It's very, very effective. Into level 6, this is when we get the extra attack. And we're not going to take the bard up to level 6 because they also get the extra attack at level 6 too. We'll take Fireball, I guess, and the Haste spell there. And you can also learn them from scrolls, so if you want something else, but it's not major difference. Like Sleet Storm can be nice too. And we'll add in the Fireball there. Now, for our next level, this is why I mentioned we could start with the Bard and then multi-class in the Wizard later if you're at a higher level. We're going to add in the Bard. This gives us a Vicious Mockery, which is pretty funny. With the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, you can do this as a bonus action, which is nice. And also, Friends is great. Minor Illusion, as mentioned, we can grab here. And for the spells we'll be taken from the Bard, we get a healing spell with Healing Word. If there's allies down, you can pick them up. Thunder Wave, the Long Strider, which is a great buff to give yourself more movement speed. And then either Speak with Animals or Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Dissonant Whispers can be okay too, which can frighten a target. So your choice between those two there. And then for our level 2, we get the Jack of all trades, an extra short rest. Those things are all great. Disguise Self can be nice too, because you can use things like Get the Yankee weapons utilizing that. Fairy Fire is nice too, but we're going to take the Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Now, once we hit level 3, this is when we get our subclass, and this gives us the very powerful Slashing Flourish range. So we can attack 2 targets at once, which is crazy. So you can actually attack the same target twice. This uses our Bardic Inspiration. So that's something to keep in mind, because we can also replenish our Bardic Inspiration. Now, fighting style, I would recommend, depends really. The dueling one's going to be okay if you want to do a main hand attack. 2-weapon fighting if we're going to use hand crossbows, because this will give your ability modifier to the offhand crossbow, so that can be nice. It's, again, only if you're going to use a crossbow. And for our next level spell, this is where I mentioned we can grab Hold Person here. Silence can be nice too if you want to go kind of an anti-mage type attacker, which can stop others' concentrations. Level 4, now, this is what I was talking about. We could multi-class. I like to keep the full spellcasting progression, so we're going to stick here with this, and we could potentially add in like the Tempest Domain Cleric, but I want to show you something really cool. So we'll stick with this here. Another cantrip, I guess Friends. We should have taken that for the face of the party. And then for our next spell here, we're going to go with either Invisibility. Cloud of Daggers is guaranteed damage, but we have some better concentrations to take. And Silence is also nice too, so we're going to grab that. For our feat here, this is where we can go with either an increase to our either intelligence for more prepared spells, or if you want to do more charisma-based casting in the face of the party, you can go with a boost to your charisma. I'm going to show off what the crossbow expert can do, because this is actually pretty crazy, because you can make crossbow attacks at close range. Now, there's 2 weapons, depending if you want to use. You can use the Titan String Bow, and then we'll use a Strength Potion to maximize the damage there. You can also go with the Alert feat for the +5 to initiative. It just depends on your weapon choice overall. And even the Defensive Duelist could be a decent choice if your dexterity won't be high enough technically because we don't have the dexterity gloves on, but I'm going to go with the Crossbow Expert here because this allows us to use crossbows at close range, which is actually pretty crazy, and I'll show you why. Now, level 5, I wanted to take this to level 5 because we get the Font of Inspiration, which gives us our Bardic Inspiration back after a short rest, which is really nice. And then the Bardic Inspiration boost is now a 1d8, but we also get some level 3 spells. Glyph of Warding is really nice. Plant Growth is concentration-free crowd control, so this can be really good too, because you can pop this before even going into combat. And then things like Fear are also pretty effective too, so take which of these you prefer, and you can also, if you find you're not using one of these previous spells, like if you, let's say you don't use Silence at all, you can pop that away and then take Plant Growth for that crowd control that it brings. We can also go one more level. You get Counter Charm here, which I don't think is great. The extra attack doesn't stack, so this is kind of a wasted level. And my personal preference is actually to add in the Fighter, because this gives us a bonus action heal, but it also gives us the Archery Fighting Style, which gives us a +2 to ranged weapon attack. So this offsets our Sharpshooter benefit a little bit better. Defense with +1 armor class can also be nice, but we want to do our ranged weapon attacks and make sure that they land. So we're going to take this Archery feat here, or Fighting Style here. And you can see we still keep our level 6 spell slots because we have full spellcasting progression. The outfit mod is actually the Ethereal Threads mod, so if you're interested in this outfit, that's the mod. Now, as for gear, I really like to use the Dollar Amaris here, because this can give you additional 7 damage on your critical hits, and you can force a critical hit by using the Hold Person spell and then hitting them at close range, which is actually pretty crazy. Now, there are some glitches. Sometimes people can't actually activate the Blade Song if you have this in your main hand, but you can get 2 of them, but you can also use just 1 in your offhand, and then in your main hand, use something a little different. For example, Rhapsody gives you a +1 attack roll, spell save DC, and damage for every foe you slay up to a +3, which is actually pretty crazy, because then you can utilize this to boost up your spell casting too. Fowler Alluve, always a good weapon with the Shrieking Song, which will add additional thunder damage on close range attacks of targets. And also the Knife of the Undermountain King can give you advantage on attack rolls and gives you a critical hit chance increase, which is really nice too, keeping the Dollar Amaris in our offhand. Now, I mentioned the Titan String Bow, which adds our strength modifier, so if you're going to use a strength potion, that can be a +8 to the damage, which actually makes the damage pretty effective on this. However, I also mentioned that we could go with the hand crossbow here. And then since we're going to use a piercing damage with Fire Stoker, which will deal additional 1d4 to targets that are burning, so we can get a lot of extra damage off on our targets, a +7 plus a 1d4. And the nice thing is, if you get the Ballast Armor, which you can actually get on a good aligned playthrough, this will make it so that targets within 3 meters are vulnerable to piercing damage. Now it says, unless they're immune to it. However, the immunity actually gets ignored, and if the target is immune to piercing damage, they actually become vulnerable to it. So that is crazy. I also like to add in the Deathstalker Mantle for the invisibility, but you can also go with the Cloak of Protection, or really any cloak, the Cloak of Elemental Absorption, your choice. The Helmet of Arcane Acuity is the best in slot here. I also like the Hat of Fire Acuity because this can give you a +10 to your spell save DC if you do fire damage. Scorching Ray can stack that really quickly. The Hat of Storm Science Power is good too if you're going to do thunder damage, but this is best because you can use an Arrow of Many Targets and get a +10 to your spell save DC. So you do one Arrow of Many Targets, shoot that at a target, and then you can land your Hold Purse and then get those critical hits off like crazy. It's absolutely a powerful attacker. I also mentioned the Gloves of Dexterity there, setting our Dexterity to 18. The Disintegrating Nightwalkers. Now, the reason that I'm selecting this is because we can pair this with the Snowburst Ring. Now, you do need to have somebody with the Drakethroat Glaive here, and what you want to do is first, you're going to go ahead here, make sure you do a range attack. Don't attack and just pull out your crossbows there, so that whenever your character uses the elemental weapon, it's going to apply the cold damage to their ranged weapon. So with that, we now have cold damage on our bow attacks, which will proc the Snowburst Ring, creating an ice surface below them. And if you do an Arrow of Many Targets, just bounce it around, applying that ice surface everywhere. It's actually crazy. And then we also have the Amulet of Greater Health and the Ring of Protection, although if you want to crit fish, because crits will do a lot of damage, the Killer Sweetheart for the free crit is nice. But we have a 19 armor class, which will be boosted up to 22 when we have our Blade Song active with that +3. So yeah, that's why we have the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. This is actually pretty crazy. And we're also going to learn spells from scrolls because we can. So basically anything that you want, I'd recommend having Ice Storm. Globe of Invulnerability is a great one. Yeah, just take all these spells that we previously wouldn't be able to get since we were taking more levels into the Bard, but we can still cast all of these and make it pretty effective. And for prepared spells, we got like Shield, Scorching Ray, Misty Step, Counterspell, Essential, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Ice Storm, Cone of Cold, and Odaluk's Freezing Sphere. So we have spells of every level, and the Bard gives us all these here. And we also can recover a level 3 spell slot from the Wizard. And before combat, you can pop your Mage Hand again to throw water bottles to set up double damage on cold and lightning spells, so your Odaluk's Freezing Sphere or Chain Lightning can double their damage. Now in our first turn of combat, we're going to invoke our Bow Song, and we're going to apply that there. That gives us our bonus to our concentrations and also bonuses to our armor class, which will put us up to 24 if we have haste applied. And what we want to first do is we want to get our spell save DC up. So honestly, just a simple range attack here, utilizing Arrow of Many Targets, and go after a high priority target, and especially one that's going to be near other targets. Critical hits will actually spread between them, and you see there, we created an ice path. So this means that they're going to slip on it and lose their turn, which is really good. This also gave us a +8 to our Arcane Acuity, so now when we go to cast our Blizzard spells, we have a 23 spell save DC, and the same thing here with our Bard spells. That is really nice. Now we're also invisible, which is pretty crazy because this can actually stack up and give us extra damage whenever we do our Hellfire Hand Crossbow. So then we're going to go ahead again. We may as well just use another Arrow of Many Targets here and then apply the ice to as many possible targets that we can, creating more ice surfaces and knocking out more enemies, and also potentially applying the blind or burning condition to them. Now we have another action to use. So I actually think that at this point, it's probably best to use Hold Person and then stop as many targets from moving around as possible. So with a level 5 Hold Person, you can actually target 4 targets, which is really nice. So if there's multiple targets in an area with a 95% chance for most of them, this is really good. And boom, we'll be locking them all down. And we do have a bonus action left to use, which is nice because then we can do a bonus action attack. But most of the targets here actually can't move on their next turn. They resisted it, so that sucks. But what you can do is, since we have Crossbow Expert, we can go up close. This is going to be an automatic critical hit, and it's going to do a ton of damage because the aura, yeah, 54 damage on an offhand attack. That's crazy. So you can see all the damage there. The Sharpshooter all in, the Dolar Amaris bonus. These actually all get doubled because their piercing damage is doubled because they're vulnerable. So that Dolar Amaris adds a 14. The Sharpshooter adds a 20 to the damage. That's nuts. And we can get lucky and they slip on ice, and also Hold Person means that they lose their turn. Command Grovels are really only counter because we don't have the highest wisdom saves, but we also have counter spells that stop this from happening. So that is another nice thing about the Wizard, is the Bard doesn't get counter spell, which is a very useful spell. And I got hit with a command. Great. So we lost our concentration on Hold Person, but that's okay because we still have spell slots. So we can go ahead with a 4th level one, 91% chance, 99, 95. We'll hit that there. That's exactly what we wanted. And the beautiful thing is once we get close, the Aura of Murder is active. But on top of that, we also can use that arrow many targets or our slashing flourishes, because with a slashing flourish, we're able to then attack 2 targets or the same target twice, which is also going to be pretty much a guaranteed hit there. Critical hit, 66 damage. They didn't have that applied to them, but that's fine. We can then move into another position here where we're able to actually hit both of them. We're also invisible too. We're immune to prone, so no worries about that. 100% hit chance, and they don't have... We'll then attack them and hopefully take both of these out. Boom! 80 damage, 25 damage. Yeah, that's crazy. Setting up ice surfaces still, so that is really nice. And then we just have our bonus action left, which is fine. We can use the blades. I guess we don't have the blade song impeded there. We can... That's the funny thing, is the Dolour on Mars actually blocks blade song impeded because it doesn't have the proper tags on the weapon, which is fine. We can just use a bonus action attack to hit this target here and create a nice surface there, which is perfect. And if you get tired of doing any type of bow attacks, you can use Booming Blade. You got spells like Fireball, Ice Storm, Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, Glyph of Warding, you name it. We got a lot of really good ones. So you can literally just pop down at Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, boom, creating a big ice surface and taking out most targets. This one survived here, but the nice thing is our slashing flourish actually can attack the same target twice. So we can go boom, double attack, boom, boom, taking them out, which is crazy. 56 damage on that. So yeah, this build is pretty overpowered. The Bowsinger Wizard Bard build in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already. I hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you all in the next video.